Hello and welcome. You're joined with me, Billy Ray McAvoy, and my guest today is Destiny. How do you pronounce your last name?
Ekaragha.
Destiny Ekaragha.
Yep.
Okay. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah. No
So,
worries.
as I've read from your website, watching films has been one of your favourite pastimes for most of your life, and I read that the first film you watched was Nightmare on Elm Street when you were just 5.
Yeah.
Which I think we all thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah. Basically, my parents didn't allow me to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just I've got an older brother who's like about 6 years older than me, so it's that kind of he was into all these films and loved watching films and stuff, but we weren't allowed to. We grew up, we only had one TV, and my dad would watch his documentaries and films and stuff, and we'd have to be reading all the time. So my older brother would sneak downstairs at around 6 a.m. to catch up on his films or his TV programs and stuff. But I was so attached to my older brother that wherever he went, I had to go. So I would hear him waking up, and I would sneak off with him as well to watch these films. And he would warn me, but I wouldn't go. So one of the first films I ended up watching was A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was both terrified and fascinated by it. I loved it. I loved the character, and hated obviously the character of Freddy Krueger, but I thought it was quite magical and quite I don't know. I've just got this strange love affair with Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street. Even to this day, I just think it's one of the best.
I mean,
characters.
It's quite crazy, isn't it? Just such a young age and horror film. So, from watching films for like most of your life and watching that when you were so young, did you always know that you wanted to be a writer and a director?
No, not at all. No. I was a complete consumer when it came to film. I just loved films. I thought of them as escapism. It was that kind of whatever was going on in my world or the world or whatever, I could always find laughter in film or fear in film or anger in film, all these big emotions that even as a kid, I don't know, when you're a child you don't always know where to put all these emotions, and film just seemed to be the answer for it. I think everybody's got their crutch when they're a kid, whether it's a blankie or I don't know, a hug or whatever it is. Mine just happened to be film. It's just
right.
that's where I went. So I loved it.
Okay. So after studying film at college and university, is that right?
Yes.
What was it like transitioning from your education to your first job as a runner in the industry?
What was it like? It was because to be honest, I studied film and TV in college, and in uni I studied film and communications. So that was more theory based. But if I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know that there was I didn't even know that there was a film industry, an active film industry in the UK when I left university, and I was like 21. So I was gonna go into PR, but my older brother knew a friend who knew Tamina Bleasdale, who was already working in the industry, and he met her and at a party randomly, and he was like, "Oh, my sister just graduated film." Da, da, da. So I met up with her, and she was just like, "Why don't you be a runner?" She got me a job as a runner on this film that she was a second AD on, and that's how I didn't even know what a second AD was. I didn't know that their films were being made here. So, but once I got that job as a runner, I was like, I don't know what I want to do yet in this industry, but I do know that being on set is something that I have to do for the rest of my life. I don't know what, but I because I loved the energy of it. I loved the action of it.
All right. How long was you a runner for then before you went up the ladder, so to say?
So to speak. I was a runner. It was quite sporadic actually, because I wasn't. I knew people that were runners constantly. Like they'd get job after job after job. And truth be told, I don't know if maybe I wasn't a great runner or something, but I would get one job and then you'd have to wait ages for the next one. So in between that, I was working at a cinema, which is like one of the best jobs any film student or young budding filmmaker can have, because you're just watching films for free constantly. I was doing that. So I guess from 21 to, I made tight jeans. I shot tight jeans when I was just at the end of 24, so around 24, 25. It's about 3 years or 3-4 years, yeah.
You mentioned Tight Jeans, your first film, which you wrote and directed.
Yeah.
After you directed Tight Jeans, how did it feel receiving recognition and praise from London Film Festival?
It was insane because it was my first short film. So, I decided to. In fact, I was gonna make another short film, my second short film, which was The Park, but I couldn't find funding for it because I was a novice and I didn't have a show reel or anything. And I think people were a bit like, can we give someone that a substantial amount of money to make a film if they've never made one? So I wrote Tight Jeans just so, almost like for a show reel, so I could prove that I could make The Park. But when we shot, so we got a little bit of funding for Tight Jeans, which little did I know that little bit of money started my entire career. So I thought Tight Jeans was just going to be this little film that was just going to be a show reel to prove that I can make another. But when I was shooting it, I was like, I really like this film. I think it's making me laugh, and I wrote it. So, not to say everybody found it funny, but I did. So for thinking that, from thinking that this is just going to be a little film for a show reel, to it getting into the London Film Festival and then receiving the praise that it did, was surreal. I did not see it coming. I didn't plan for it. Not that you can plan for those things, but I didn't. It was just, I was just so humbled by it. I thought it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been great. Did this all give you like a boost of confidence, which helped you in later productions, would you say?
Yeah, I think what it did was it let me know. What I learned from Tight Jeans was that I knew stylistically what I liked and what I didn't like. And that's what I would tell like young filmmakers, why I would say make a short film before you make a feature, is because you find out what it is that you like just as a director, and visually, what you like and what your dislikes are visually. That's what at least that's what happened to me on Tight Jeans. So it made me more confident in the next project that I did, in terms of I knew the kind of style-wise, I knew what it is that I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. I think the film that I learned the most on, though, was The Park, simply because, Tight Jeans is set in one place. The Park has got several locations, and that was my first time really dealing with something like that. And there were moments where I'd be muddled and just be like, oh my God, what am I doing? How do I do this? And I had to learn then. And that was something where I was like, okay, I'm supposed to have my script all the time, and I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. And that probably, it was probably that film that made me, kind of lose confidence and then gain confidence through the making of that film, I would say.
All right. So as I've seen from previous works, you directed a music video called Billy for Marley Harwood. Sorry. That's all right. What was it like directing a music video, like in comparison to film?
It's actually a lot of fun. I think because it actually wasn't that different, because the music video had a narrative. I think if I was shooting something that was really abstract and really kind of, music videos nowadays is just someone in front of a studio, just a plain background and they're just singing to. I think I would have found that difficult. That would have been so different from what I'm used to. But because this music video had a narrative, it wasn't that different. actually. I wish I could kind of, but you know, yeah, it wasn't because it had narrative. It was a lot of fun though. I guess the difference was it was, you know, you're shooting. Oh, I say, like we knew exactly what, because I worked with Bola at Baje in doing this video, and we knew exactly where everybody had to be for each part of the song. That was quite different because you're just like, okay, for this part of the bridge or the chorus, such and such has to be doing such and such. So that was a lot of fun trying to figure out what, you know, and making sure that it coincides with the lyrics and stuff like that. So it's different in that way, but it was fun. It was, yeah.
Yeah. So from previously doing films, how did the idea of you directing the music video come about?
Well, someone had asked Bola, because, you know, William and Kate had just been got engaged and stuff. They kind of wanted to do something that kind of, you know, spoofed it a little bit or something like that. And Bola got approached to write the idea for this video and to basically write the music video. And she was just like, I know someone who can direct this. And then she came to me because I was in development with Gone Too Far with her at the time. And so we, you know, went over it and made sure, you know, we were on the same page. And then I ended up directing a video. So,
okay. So, who would you say inspires you in terms of directors and people, or even films?
Mm-hmm. In terms of directors, the first few directors that inspired me initially to where I could just be like, I want to do this, and I want to kind of do it in a similar way, or at least in a similar vein, were Kevin Smith, who made Clerks, and that's just one of my favorite films. I just think I love that film. I can't really even elaborate because those are the only words that I come up with. Because it was so funny and so simply made, and it was dialogue driven, and that's when I knew I wanted to make films that had good dialogue, or at least was dialogue driven. Richard Linklater, pretty much. Richard Linklater I loved because it had great dialogue and great characters, but also a cinematic feel to a lot of his films. You know, the way he uses the cameras in things like Before Sunset and Before Sunrise, I really liked that. And Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing is just one of my favorite films, and the filmmaking just technically in that film, let alone like the dialogue, the characters, the issues, the themes, and also and now I would say you know, Quentin Tarantino again, dialogue, right? Just a wonderful writer, It's almost like music. And today, I'd say my biggest inspiration is Steve McQueen, just because I thought Shame was an incredible piece of work. Down to the characters and the unsaid, a great example of the unsaid. It made me feel very uncomfortable, which is not always a bad thing. And 12 Years a Slave is just an extraordinary piece of work. So I'd say he's probably the filmmaker right now that I'm really inspired by. Yeah.
It's nice to hear a lot about the writing that inspires you too.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a writer as well as the director. Do you think it's important to write a lot in your job role as opposed to just directing as well, would you say?
I think it's important for me because I'm a writer as well. So, but I don't think. I think directors should try writing, even if it's just a short, just so you know what it entails to write a script, and you know, because you know you're reading scripts constantly, and you want to know what makes a good film. Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? How do I get there? If I'm going to cut a line, what would that mean? Because directors are constantly cutting scenes or lines or whatever, and it's like, or adding stuff as well. Some directors will add stuff to their script and things like that. And I think just a little exercise of a screenwriting exercise won't hurt you So I would say do it. It won't hurt your craft by doing it. But for me, it's important because I am a writer, and I think if I stop writing, I'll go crazy first off because I'll have all these stories in my head, and I need to get them out. But it just keeps my brain active just by writing stuff and coming up with ideas. That makes me happy. So
in terms of directors, it seems like a predominantly male industry, and
yes.
female directors seem to be brushed under the carpet a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like this has hindered you in your work in any way?
I think my race has probably done that more than my gender. There is a severe lack of female directors. It's ridiculous. You just have to look at the statistics. But being black as well, I've noticed. I think when you're in my experience, I think when you're a female, it's a bit more. It's less blatant in how people treat you. It's less. People aren't gonna go, women are not important in front of you and stuff like that. So if it is there, it's in the ether. But I choose to just, keep moving forward. My race probably poses more of a problem for some people simply because my characters in the past have been black, and because the narrative isn't a narrative that they're familiar with in terms of, I don't know, if there's a black female, she doesn't have 6 kids by 4 different dads, or is a crack whore, or if there's a black boy in it, he's not about to go and shoot his friend or something like that. Because that's a narrative a lot of people are familiar with. They expect to see that. And when they don't see it, it's like, well, how do I sell this? What is it? What does it mean? And stuff like that. And so being faced with that, that's when I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm black. So, it's that kind of, I think that's there. But I do think it's very important to say that I don't, even though, misogyny and kind of, sexism and racism is out there and is probably an obstacle that I'll always face, I don't choose to carry it with me every day of my life, because that will cripple me, and you don't find happiness that way. I think it's very important to be aware of it, because then it can't sucker punch you, and it can't like hurt you, because you're aware that it's there. And when you're aware of something, you can fight it better because you're better prepared. But not to carry it. I don't carry it. I don't walk in a room with it, because that won't do me any favors, in professionally or personally. So,
a common misconception about film writers and directors, which even stated on your website, is that film directors are rich, and people seem to think that all film directors have a lot of money.
Right.
And the truth is that most of them, especially at the start,
mm-hmm.
are pretty much broke,
mm-hmm.
using whatever money they have in their back pocket.
Right.
So, how did you finance your first film, would you say? Or
Tamina, we looked for local funding, or local funding bodies. So at the time, there was something called Southern Exposure, or should I say the Borough Fund. So in London, there were different boroughs, and they would split the money up to support filmmakers from each borough. So we applied for the Southern Exposure, and I gave them my script, Tight Jeans, and they read it, and they seemed to really, really like it, and gave us a little bit of money to make this short film. So that's how I funded Tight Jeans, which is why these local funding boroughs and these funding schemes are so important, because I honestly don't know how I would have got that film made without that money, because I simply didn't have any, and there wasn't any, I couldn't go to a rich uncle or whatever because I didn't have one. So, it was public funding.
Did the thought of the lack of money ever compromise your vision in any way?
No, simply because we had an idea. We worked within our means, but we had an idea of what we were going to do. And Tight Jeans was very simple. That was the point, to make something very simple, technically, so that we didn't go over budget, or we didn't, we had to work within our means. So I guess so, in a way. But it works. That always helps you stylistically to become a better director, because you have to make decisions straight away and on the spot. And you're just like, when you're restricted, you never know. Sometimes the ideas are even a lot better than if you had millions of pounds.
Do you come to a lot of different educational establishments to speak with young students and film students?
Say that again, sorry?
Sorry. Do you come to a lot of different educational establishments to speak with young film students?
Yeah, all the time. I think it's really important, because I would have been really inspired by that if I had the same thing happen, if people had come in and talked to me really about the film industry. Like I said, at 21, I didn't know about the film industry. So I just want to, I'm inspired by the students, and I hope that I can just spread it, give a little light to what the industry is and what it entails and what you have to do. More importantly, the different steps and the different pathways into this industry.
Thank you. My very final question is, what would you say to a younger version of yourself, given the knowledge and experience that you have now?
I would say keep going. There are going to be some obstacles, but keep going, keep moving. And don't eat so much. That's what I would say. Don't eat so much when you're depressed, or when you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Because exercise is killer. Trying to get rid of all that weight is too much effort. That's honestly what I would say.
Okay, well, thank you for being here with me today. It's been enlightening.
Good stuff. Good.
Thank you very much. It's
been
great having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.